Welcome to A Century of Cinema. Today I will be exploring my favourite films of 1974. First up, Wim Wenders' Alice in den Städten, Alice in the Cities. The first, and for my money best, installment of what would become Wenders' Road Trilogy. It stars Rüdiger Vogler as writer Philip Winter, who is in America to write a newspaper article, but he has done little more than take Polaroids, and has become disillusioned with the whole endeavour, and wants to go back to Germany. At the airport, he meets a woman named Lisa and her daughter Alice, the remarkable Jelle Rotländer. They end up getting tickets to Amsterdam the next day due to an airport worker strike in Germany, and Philip spends the night with Lisa. The next morning, Lisa leaves Alice with Philip and tells him in a letter that she will catch up with them in Amsterdam. Philip reluctantly takes Alice, but Lisa does not show up, so Philip's next move is to attempt to find Alice's grandmother. They search a few places in Germany, since Alice only has a vague recollection of where her grandmother lives. As they travel together, a strong bond develops between them. Alice in the Cities is Wim Wenders' fourth feature film, but it really does feel like the moment where he found himself as a filmmaker. I equate it to when Ingmar Bergman made Summer with Monica. See my 1953 video for that one. Also, I consider this possibly his warmest and most moving film, yet in a very subtle way. So much of the success of the film lies with Jelle Rotländer as Alice. She is the core of the story, and Rotländer's performance is one of the best of any child actor I've seen. It's not flashy or intense, but it comes across as real, and completely adorable too. It makes Rüdiger's job a lot easier as Philip, since the interplay between them seems effortlessly and completely natural. Alice in the Cities is one of my favourite movies of 1974, and a must for anyone with an interest in the work of Wim Wenders. Lenny, directed by Bob Fosse, is a story of stand-up comedian Lenny Bruce, played by Dustin Hoffman, focusing primarily on his obscenity charges, and especially his relationship with wife Honey, Valerie Perrine. While the film itself has quite a lot going for it, such as career-best cinematography for Bruce Surtees in dazzling atmospheric high-contrast black and white, which garnered one of Lenny's 6 Oscar nominations, alongside director Fosse, straying from his usual field of musicals, to deliver a talky, intimate biopic, which maintains a kind of rhythm and flow not dissimilar to a musical. The effect is somewhat unsettling, but completely engaging. This is aided immeasurably by the 2 lead performances, Valerie Perrine as Honey and Dustin Hoffman as Lenny. Valerie Perrine, in only her 3rd film role, captures something she would never get close to again for the rest of her career. This performance could sit comfortably amid the greatest and most lauded acting turns in film history. It is powerful yet subtle, dripping with authenticity, and completely heart-wrenching at times. Her descent from stunning, bubbly showgirl, a freaking gorgeous one at that, to hopeless junkie is flawlessly portrayed. And Dustin Hoffman, ideally cast as Lenny Bruce, has by this point already shown many times over that he is one of the greatest actors of his generation. And in Lenny, he brings all his considerable talent to bear to perfectly capture the humour, rebelliousness, flaws, and tragic nature of the infamous and influential comedian. Both performances garnered Oscar nominations, but I'm going to go a step further. Valerie Perrine and Dustin Hoffman are my choices for Best Actress and Best Actor of 1974.
Don't you want to tell me about the Chinese chick in the club? You didn't know I knew that, did you?
I love you, Lenny. Why don't you tell me to stop?
Why don't you tell yourself to stop?
Roman Polanski's Chinatown, written by Robert Towne, stars Jack Nicholson as private investigator J.J. Gittes, who gets embroiled in a scheme involving LA water rights. He is put on this path when hired by a woman claiming her husband, Hollis Mulray, the water commissioner, is cheating on her. Gittes soon finds out that the woman who hired him is not the real Mrs. Mulray, The real Evelyn Mulwray is played by Faye Dunaway. Soon after, Hollis is found murdered, and JJ investigates, putting himself in jeopardy and getting closer to Evelyn, and discovers that her father, Noah Cross, John Huston, is heavily involved, and some dark secrets are revealed. Both a love letter to classic noir cinema and a reinvention of the genre, Chinatown has a hell of a lot going for it. Authentic costumes and set design, stunning cinematography from John A. Alonzo, easily his best work, a haunting and evocative score by Jerry Goldsmith, well up there with his best too, no mean feat since Goldsmith has received a massive 17 Oscar nominations for score. It is also some of Roman Polanski's best work. He gives a nice little cameo too, as the thug who slices JJ's nose. And he also wrote the ending to Robert Towne's masterful, intricate, disturbing and witty screenplay. A screenplay which is hailed as one of the best ever, and it's hard to disagree when you have a look at what Towne accomplished with Chinatown. It is a period noir murder mystery, mired in high-level greed and corruption, with a helping of perversion thrown in, and it does it with a wink and a smile, and some sparkling dialogue.
In Chinatown.
What were you doing there?
Working for the district attorney.
Doing what?
As little as possible.
The district attorney gives his men advice like that?
They do in Chinatown.
Chinatown received 11 Oscar nominations, including the Big Five: Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay, winning only for Original Screenplay. And that's pretty much my opinion too. Chinatown by Robert Towne is my choice for Best Original Screenplay of 1974. Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather Part II begins with the young Vito Corleone, who is sent to America after his mother is murdered by the Sicilian Mafia. From there, it intercuts between Vito as a young man, played by Robert De Niro, and the continuing story of Michael Corleone, Al Pacino reprising his role. Young Vito's story consists of his criminal beginnings while raising his young family, and Michael's concerns his attempts to expand and legitimize the family business, while dealing with Senate hearings, the breakdown of his marriage to Kay, Diane Keaton, and betrayal by his brother Fredo, John Cazale, really stepping it up his game from the previous film, largely because he is given more opportunity to do so. The Godfather Part II would receive 11 Oscar nominations, just like Chinatown, but won Best Supporting Actor for Robert De Niro, Best Score, Art Direction, Adapted Screenplay for Coppola and Mario Puzo, Best Director for Coppola, to date his only Oscar for direction, and Best Picture, making it the first sequel to have that distinction. It is often even considered superior to the original, and while I would not quite go that far, I still consider it one of the best sequels ever made. Impeccably acted, with flawless costumes, sets, and music, beautifully shot by Gordon Willis, and its two biggest strengths, Puzo and Coppola's screenplay, which seamlessly blends and connects Vito and Michael's stories, and continues the Corleone saga with grace and expertise, and the direction of Francis Ford Coppola, who has by this point proved himself to be a filmmaker of the highest caliber, and he revels in the freedom of such prestige, allowing him to do justice to his previous work and broaden the scope of the Corleone story. The Godfather Part II is my choice for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Director. Blazing Saddles, the first of two Mel Brooks movies to feature this year, stars Cleavon Little as Bart, a railroad worker in the Old West who is appointed sheriff of a town called Rockridge, which Attorney General Hedley Lamarr, Harvey Korman, plans to put a railroad through. The townsfolk do not react well to a black sheriff, but he wins them over by taking down the hulking Mongo. In the jail, Bart meets Gene Wilde as Jim, who was once renowned gunfighter with the Waco Kid, but is now a miserable drunk. Jim helps Bart thwart Lamar's nefarious plan. So there's your basic plot, but it doesn't even matter because the thing about Blazing Saddles is just how damn funny it is. Even almost 50 years later, it is still one of the most hilarious films you'll ever see. Written by Brooks, Norman Steinberg, Andrew Bergman, Alan Uger, and Richard Pryor, it is wall-to-wall laughs. painted on a convincing Western canvas, shot by Joseph Baroque, with great music to boot. John Morris's rousing cowboy score, the songs, particularly the title track, written by Brooks and Morris, which could slot easily into any classic Western, given more authenticity by the fact that they managed to get Frankie Lane to sing it. In a part originally meant for Richard Pryor, Cleavon Little knocks it out of the park as Bart, equally adept portraying sassy, dry, or downright cartoonish. Literally, there's a bit straight out of Looney Tunes there. But Gene Wilder's Waco Kid pretty much steals the show, and seems to do it effortlessly. He is so low-key, but everything he does is note-perfect. And the rest of the cast ain't too shabby either. Mel Brooks, small role as Governor Lepetamain, one of his funniest ever. Harvey Korman chews every inch of the scenery as Hedley Lamar. And Madeline Kahn does a great Marlene Dietrich parody as Lily von Stupp, earning her an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. One of the three for the movie, with Best Editing and Best Song, which somehow lost to that cheesy Towering Inferno one. One of the funniest movies of all time, Blazing Saddles is damn close to my choice for Best Picture, only eclipsed by another Mel Brooks movie which I love even more.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Young Frankenstein. Gene Wilder, who co-wrote the movie with Brooks, stars as Frederick Frankenstein.
It's pronounced Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, who inherits the Transylvanian estate of his infamous grandfather Victor Frankenstein. He arrives in Transylvania and meets Igor, not Igor, Marty Feldman, in arguably the role he is best remembered for, Inga, the immediately lovable Terry Garr, and when they get to the castle, the one-time paramour of Victor, Cloris Leachman, as Frau Blucher. The initially resistant Frederick soon becomes obsessed with Victor's work and brings to life his own creation, played by Peter Boyle, who is lulled into a peaceful state when a certain tune is played on the violin, as demonstrated by Frau Blucher. Naturally, the creature causes mayhem in classic Frankenstein style, with excellent recreations of scenes from the original film, such as the interactions with the little girl and the blind man, a funny cameo by Gene Hackman. And of course, you gotta have some angry villagers with torches, and they are led by Kenneth Mars, Inspector Kemp. Oh, and Frederick's fiancée, Elizabeth, turns up, just as Victor and Inga are getting together. Of course, the plot is basically just a framework for the jokes, which are almost on a par with Blazing Saddles.
Igor, would you give me a hand with the bags?
Certainly. You take the blonde and I'll take the one in the tavern.
But what sets Young Frankenstein apart is how well made it is. Practically everything is a loving homage to the old Universal horror films of the 1930s, with incredibly authentic cinematography by Gerald Hirschfeld, and even more astounding production design, which utilizes original props from the 1931 Frankenstein. Also, Brooks' perennial composer, John Morris, does some of his best work here, which goes a long way in capturing the atmosphere of a classic monster movie. And the cast are all hilarious. Terry Garr somehow manages to pull off equal parts cute, sexy, and funny. Peter Boyle is actually in the top tier of all-time Frankenstein's monster performances. Kenneth Mars is about as off the wall as he was in The Producers. Madeline Kahn is, well, Madeline Kahn. She's truly one of a kind, and gets some big laughs here. Cloris Leachman commands the screen and gobbles up every precious scene she's in as Frau Blucher. Marty Feldman is the most side-splitting of this insanely funny group, and Gene Wilder pours all his considerable talent and beautiful insanity into the character of Frederick. Young Frankenstein is my favorite Mel Brooks movie, my favorite Gene Wilder movie, my favorite Frankenstein movie, and my best picture of 1974. Join me next time on A Century of Cinema, when I will be discussing my favorite films of 1975. Now go watch a movie.